Before we begin today's episode, I just want to say a quick word from our sponsor, Tooth Shower. That's Tooth Shower. If you haven't had a chance to check out this product yet, head over to toothshower.com and check it out. I've been using this product now for a couple months, and I really love it. It's easy to hook up. It's easy to use. It's very user-friendly. It'll shave several minutes off your prep time in the morning. Can't say enough good about this product. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, head over to toothshower.com. Welcome to The Real Game, a podcast by coaches for coaches. I am your host, Matt Philbrick. Welcome back to this episode of The Real Game. As always, I am your host, Matt Philbrick. It's kind of a special episode for me today. Number one, because it's been about a year since I started recording my podcast. So we're about 37 or 38 episodes in. And it's funny because it was almost a year ago today, give or take a couple of days, that I had my brother Mark on the podcast, and I'm welcoming him back today for his second episode. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me back on. And was it like your first episode that I was on? Or
it was actually my second episode. So you were kind of my first official episode. I did like an introductory episode before yours, and then yours was the first episode. It was on coaches and officials, and so here we are again a year later.
Yeah, well, I've kind of gotten radio silence from you since then, and I figured I was probably one and done. Maybe the ratings weren't too great on that first episode.
Well, I think that believe it or not, I think it's the most listened to episode that I have. So I don't know how that's possible. I guess you have a pretty big following on social media or something.
Yeah, you probably got all 5 of my followers on there, and went big time.
I average 6 listens per episode, and yours is 8, so that's pretty good.
Man, almost double.
I know, it's rocking.
Maybe we could hit double digits on this one. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
I figured I'd boost it out on Facebook a couple times, maybe get 2 or 3 more listens. So,
okay, yeah, let's up our game right now.
So I wanted to have you back on and kind of catch back up a little bit. So, I know we alluded to some of these things in the first episode that you were in, a little bit of your coaching experience, but the focus of that episode was on the officiating part. And it was a good episode. Today, I want to focus more on your coaching experience and talk a little bit about that. So just kind of give us an overhead shot of your coaching experience and kind of where you started and leading up to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I started coaching like right out of college. I think it was one of those typical scenarios, where you get a job at a small school. It was a relatively small Christian school in the DC metro area. Quite a bit of basketball around there, and so it's, when you get a job at those small schools, they have you doing a little bit of everything,
right.
Teaching, janitorial, coaching, everything to kind of patch a job description together for you.
You got to earn that 22,000 somehow.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that because, I went in for my first paycheck. And I took it home, and I was pretty excited. I said, I think I'm going to do okay here, on the amount that I got for the week there. And then I went to my box the next week to get my paycheck again. There was nothing there, And so I went and checked with the office, and they said, no, you get that amount every 2 weeks.
Oops. Yeah.
So that kind of took my mojo away for a little bit there, but
Joy kind of fizzled out.
Provided, he always has, and it was quite an adventure for sure.
Yeah.
But so, anyways, I started coaching basketball then, and I loved it. And I was in that area for 4 years. Our team did pretty well. We never quite won the championship. We went to it once, ODAX, and there in Northern Virginia. Old Dominion Association of Christian Schools.
Hmm.
But I had the opportunity while I was there to do some other coaching as well. Went to Belgium with a couple of AAU teams from the DC area, and we won a tournament in Europe. So that was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I don't know, just got some experience there. I've coached in a couple of other states. My highlight probably as far as winning goes, and really the team that I had as well. I really enjoyed the team I had, and great bunch of kids that came through there in Virginia. But I coached in Michigan for a little while, and we had a team of just scrappers. It was kind of guard oriented. I had one big guy, and then I had like four guards, and they just ran and ran and ran and pressed and pressed. And we ended up in the semifinal of the tournament playing an undefeated team. I think their name was Langway or something like that, but they were undefeated for the year, 17-0 if I remember right. And oh man, we just ran them to death. We ended up winning by about 10 points. Everyone was totally shocked because they were rated 1. And we went to the championship, and we were down, I think it was 7 points in the third quarter, and momentum was not on our side. And the lights went out in the gym, like, all those fluorescent lights, whatever, those big lights, just boom, they just all went off.
Yeah.
And it took them about 10 minutes to get them back on. And after that, my guys came out, totally changed the momentum. I mean, I think some people thought there was some nefarious things going on there, like
funny business.
Yeah. Maybe we sent somebody to, flip the switch on that or something. But anyways, it was like flipping a switch with my team. And the interesting thing about it was that my big guy, he was a bricklayer at the free throw line almost all season. And I used to spend extra time with him because he get fouled all the time. It's like the Shaq attack thing, you know? Everybody just knew to put him on the free throw line because I don't know what it was, depth perception or what it was. First, I thought he was going to break the backboard the way he shot it. And then he just really flat. And so we worked and worked and worked on that. And he went, I think, 11 for 12 in the championship game from the free throw line. Yeah. And we ended up pulling out that game and win the championship there. So that was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
I had another thing about that team I'll just mention as a side note is the two of my boys on that team ended up going to the Gulf War in the Middle East. And they were Marines. and two of them died over there on that team. One of them was that big man. Which was really something. But I have really fond memories of it. I was still in touch with some of the guys from that team. But so I think coaching is a bit in my DNA, and I love it when I get the opportunity to do it, which is not as much these days, even though I'm back into it a little bit now. Yeah,
sure. So that's a good recap of kind of where you've been as a coach and some of the things, and then you blew right through my second question of some highlights of your coaching career. But it's good to have those memories. I certainly have some good memories of, and they're not all like, we won the championship here, so that's a memory. There's some other things along the way that we've enjoyed as coaches as well, and that certainly stick out to me, and I'm sure they do to you as well. But do you have any memorable coaches who impacted you along the way, or coaches that you look up to now, or maybe that you follow that you think are just kind of worth keeping an eye on, or that have impacted you in any way?
Yeah, well, I'll mention my high school coach, Terry Weymouth, and we kind of had the keys to the gyms here in town back in the day. A little town here in Maine, the town manager got tired of us asking for the key to the gym, so she just gave us a key. Yeah. And we could just go in there pretty much whenever we wanted. But we our little school here in the area didn't have its own gym, so we had to practice in the town gym. But my coach, Terry Weymouth, he was pretty hard nosed. He was kind of no nonsense, very competitive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he was just volunteering his time. So I remember he'd show up. Did you ever have him as a coach? Did you ever have him?
I did, yeah, for a couple of years. I always remember him showing up with his work clothes on and his boots and coming into the town hall there. And
yeah, exactly. He drove the oil truck. His family they were like the oil delivery tycoons here in the area.
Yeah.
And he would show, he drove the truck. He would show up with his gloves still on and everything.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
working. He smelled like kerosene or something.
Yeah.
And but he would, he'd run us, and he had a plan, and we always had a really good team here for
Yep.
being a small town. And I remember one time though. So I guess I appreciated that about him. I wanted to say that he volunteered his time for many years here, and just did it, I think, just for the joy of coaching. But
Mhm.
I do remember one time, like I said, he was kind of no nonsense, and I think I was a junior in high school or something, and I was at kind of that stage where something would strike you funny, and maybe I'm still at that stage, but
Yeah.
you can't stop laughing. I think we've been in those scenarios a couple times together, but
yeah, probably recently too.
He was like, giving us this inspirational speech before this big game we were going to be having, but there was something about sometimes with the more serious he got, he kind of struck me humorously, and
yeah,
I was trying not to, but I got laughing as he was giving his speech.
Yep.
And he looked right at me and he said, "You know what? I'm not having any hot dogs on this team. And this is a serious practice we're having right now. If you're not going to be serious about it, get out." Out, he said. And he tossed me right out of there. I was like, okay.
Oh, man.
So,
Yeah.
I asked him the other day, because this is over 30 years ago, and I asked him the other day if he remembered that. He kind of laughed. He said, "I sure do." I said, so he remembered it too. So, sometimes you think,
That's great.
Was it exactly like that? Maybe am I really remembering accurately? But he said, yeah, that's the way it happened.
Yeah.
But as far as other coaches, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I was younger when he was coaching, so maybe like 6th to 8th grade, something like that. So probably don't have the amount of memories about him that you do, but I certainly do have memories about him, and those pretty much fall in line with what I would expect from Coach T.
Yeah, I remember one time the championship game. I think it was my senior year, and we were up by, I think, about 10 points in the third quarter. So he was kind of, he was freezing them a little bit, moving the ball around. And I got the ball right in a spot where I really like to shoot from the elbow. And it really, we weren't supposed to be shooting that soon down there. And I remember as I was taking the shot, he said, "I told you not to shoot." And then the ball goes in, and he he gave one of his
Yeah.
He just kind of turned around and walked back to the bench.
Yeah, but if it hadn't have gone in, it would have been the end for you, probably, that game.
Yeah, probably. But I don't know. It's like it probably would have been, but I knew I'd make it.
He's a great guy.
As far as other coaches, as far as direct coaches to me, I don't really have a lot to say about many of them. Decent people, but I just, I was just kind of here and there in college and had different coaches and stuff. So none of them had a tremendous impact on me. But when I started coaching, I was a student of a guy named Morgan Wootman. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
He coached, I think, over 40 years at DeMatha High School in the DC area.
Yep.
And I came across some of his stuff because I was in that area and just started studying, his philosophy and so on. And the guy, he won over 1,000 games and had an 870 winning percentage or something. And the thing that I found interesting about him, as well as there was a private school, and he had to teach at the same time that he coached. And but I learned quite a bit from just reading about him.
Yep.
And then another coach that I found interesting and impactful was Joe Gibbs.
Okay. Yep.
For the Washington Redskins. You don't mind if I call them the Redskins on here, do you?
I don't mind. I don't think our listeners mind either. Yeah.
Okay.
If they do,
they don't exist anymore. But.
Yeah.
But anyways, Joe Gibbs, he was one of these guys that, to me, he was like a fierce competitor. Yeah. But he always kept, dignity, and he always kept, the type of demeanor that I would like to have, even though I didn't always pull it off. So yeah, those are a few of the coaches that I thought of there.
No, that's great. That's great. Coach Wooten, actually, yeah, he coached for, I just looked it up while you were talking. It looked like he coached for 46 years at DeMatha High
Okay.
School, and he
Yeah.
just passed away a couple of years ago. So he
Oh,
was
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
almost 90 years old when he passed away. So
Huh.
no, that's
Yeah.
great. Two great coaches with not just winning records, but their character. You know, they had character that you can speak about and certainly model your coaching career after. So, any lessons, like when you think back at your coaching time, any lessons you learned during your coaching days that maybe you think of now back on that have served you well over your years?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and it's transferred to me in other capacities that I've been in as well, like as a youth pastor. Now I'm actual, the senior pastor of a church. Is just connecting one on one with people,
Right.
not looking at it as just okay, this whole the team as a group, or the church as a bunch of people, or the teens as a youth group, but just seeing them as individuals.
Yeah.
And every individual on the team is just different in their giftings and their personality. And, so just seeking to connect with them one-on-one and making an impact, not just on the team and where we're trying to head together, but also, perhaps being able to make a difference in an individual's life. Also, I learned that it was good to show an interest in the younger kids that weren't with the team yet. Kind of the same as like with being a youth pastor. If I could connect with them when they were younger and they weren't on the team yet or in the group yet,
yeah,
then that really served well when they actually got there, because I already had a relationship with them.
Right.
Instead of trying to like push a button when the time came, and I didn't really give them the time of day up to that point. But yeah, now you're on my team, so I'm going to try to be an impact, have an impact in your life when I didn't show an interest at all before.
Right.
I think that's a tougher road to hoe than if you already kind of lay that groundwork, And I try to do that in our church here too, because it goes pretty fast, and these kids remember. These kids remember if you cared about them, enough to have an interest in them when they're younger or not, or maybe now you're interested in them because they can do something for your team, or they can put a check in the offering plate or whatever. So.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. It's a very, very good point. And I really appreciate that answer. And it's something that, as I coach even now, and I think about some of the younger guys coming up through and how am I gonna start to bridge that gap now with some of those younger guys as they make their way up onto the varsity team? Because like you said, it's we all get busy, and it's hard sometimes to put the effort into not just your team, but the younger guys coming up through and build those relationships. So that's an excellent point. When you think of coaching just in general, so maybe not even you as a coach, but coaching in general, how do you think that's changed over the years? So you started coaching probably in 1994 or 5, around there sometime. Now it's 2024. How do you think coaching in general has changed over the years? Or has it? Has it pretty much stayed the same?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's coaches that try to keep up better with all the political correctness and stuff. Where culture does change, I guess, the cultural norms. I did notice that even a couple of things, that we might have used different terminology before that now is frowned upon.
Okay.
And we didn't mean anything by it at the time, but obviously when we talked about running suicides, we weren't trying to belittle,
Right. Yeah.
suicide in any way, shape, or form. It was just kind of like this metaphor, right, for the fact that you sometimes you feel like you're going to die when you're running,
Yeah.
So I think people, maybe today are more sensitive to that sort of thing, and so you maybe have to be careful about certain terminology you use or whatever. I don't think that there's much difference really in coaching today than maybe back in the day, if we use that saying, because I think people are people ultimately, and the way you reach hearts, I think, is very similar. Transcends cultures, uh, and having that character that you spoke of, and having a strong philosophy, I think can be. It doesn't have to, change that much over time, and maybe I just haven't succumbed to the new cultural norms very well, but I do believe, that if you have the right kind of philosophy and character, you shouldn't have to make all that many adjustments over
Yeah, right,
time,
right.
if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does make sense, and I think that you hit the nail on the head when you stated that culture probably and society has dictated the most changes in coaching. I think there are obviously coaching styles. There's different coaching styles, and we see that from youth basketball or whatever, youth sports, all the way up to professional sports. There's all different kinds of styles of coaching, but I think society has dictated that coaches change, and there's things you're allowed to say, things you're not allowed to say, and or the way you're allowed to act, or towards people or whatever. But I think that's been the biggest thing, and I definitely agree with you there. So you're back. You took some time off from coaching. I know you reffed for a number of years. You're still doing that, and now you're back in the coaching arena again. What led to your decision to get back into it?
Well, it's pretty much circumstantial. I blew my knee out about 6 months ago, and had have ACL reconstruction surgery. So I was pretty much out of officiating this season.
How's that going, by the way? How's your knee? How's your knee
pretty
doing?
good. It was funny that a week or so ago, well, a couple weeks ago, my physical therapist told me that I could start running again.
Nice.
So I was like, cool. So, as much, jogging or whatever. So I contacted my reffing board and said, hey, shoot me some middle school games, because they told me I could start running again and everything. And
Yep.
so, how it is, like everything's online. So they started, games started popping up and everything. And
Yeah.
And so I was accepting those. And so I was at my physical therapy session, and I said, oh, by the way, I got my first 2 games tonight.
Oh boy.
The guy was like, what are you talking about?
Uh-oh.
And I said,
Should have kept that to
I got
yourself.
my first 2 roughing assignments. I'm starting back up tonight. He goes, no, you are not.
Uh-oh.
I was like, I thought you told me I could start running again. He goes, no. He said, I told you you could start running, but I'm thinking of you alone in the gym, straight lines. You are not going out there with the balls flying around and bodies might be coming towards you. And,
Oh no.
6 months minimum. He said it used to be a year. I was like, oh,
yeah.
okay. So I had to go with my tail between my legs a little bit and call the reffing board back and say, yeah, sorry, that was false alarm.
A little premature there.
I got it in front of my skis or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, so I've been out of reffing, which it's been nice because this is my son Titus's senior year. So I've been able to help with his team coaching and spend a lot more time with him in that regard. The administrator of the school asked me if I'd be willing to do that, and the head coach seemed to be, willing to have me help with that. And I think it's been good overall because
Mm-hmm.
I have quite a bit more experience than he does, but he's going to be there long term. I'm not going to be. So basically, I'm looking at is maybe just help him get some more tools in his chest, for the coming years. And he's been very open to that. And so yeah, it's been great.
Good. And I can't see that there are any really challenges associated with this. But how do you like or feel about being an assistant coach versus a head coach? And are you looking at that kind of as a mentorship? You're like you said, you're trying to help this guy, maybe add some coaching skills and get some experience from somebody who's had a lot of it.
Yeah, and he's been super accommodating with it. Like he hasn't shown any sort of being territorial or anything like that. But
right.
I try to handle it from the beginning. I have obviously some pretty strong opinions about how things should be done and all that kind of stuff. But I've always sought to defer to him and, just handle it correctly. And so we kind of gained a friendship and a rapport, even in the in the game, in the time that we've had this year. But a challenge is like in practice, I can pretty much, he gives me a segment, whatever he wants me to work on, and I can handle however I want.
Oh, good.
But it's in games, you have to have one person in charge during games,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So I don't do any coaching during the games except, just like maybe pulling a guy, like a guy comes to the bench, I'll go sit next to him, talk about a couple things or that sort of thing.
Yep.
I let him do all the coaching during the games, right? I mean, that's the way it needs to be.
Sure.
But there's times, where I'm thinking, okay, we really need a timeout right now, or I would put this guy in right now, or, this defensive adjustment would probably be great. And I try to just be careful about, just letting him make those decisions unless I'm asked, because, but that's been a little challenging.
Yeah.
I'll admit. But it's been good.
Good. So as we start to wrap it up here, because we're going to run out of time pretty soon, but we have a couple minutes left. Any advice for young coaches starting out, or maybe a coach in the same situation that you were in, where you stepped away from a while, thinking about making a comeback? Any advice for any of those guys or girls?
Yeah, I would just, just look at opportunities. Just every new opportunity you get like that involves people. It just kind of expands your realm of influence a little bit. And just look at it as, being able to build relationships and impact lives. If you're getting back into coaching, just maybe reestablish, what's your philosophy, what direction are you trying to head in, and just be patient and building that, have a direction, but build a culture. And that takes time, especially if you're taking over for somebody else's culture, maybe that's already been built there. You got to work off of their foundation a little bit until you can expand to what you want to do. And I mean, I've made a mistake before too. Of I think of the years that we coached together there. Maybe it was a couple of years or just one in Maryland.
In Maryland, yep, 1 year.
I mean, I went from that winning situation that I described before in Michigan to Maryland, where we had a really young and inexperienced team.
Yeah.
And I think I was a little over exuberant sometimes, I mean, I always say to a young coach or coach that's starting new at a new place, don't try to be Bobby Knight, especially when throwing the chairs part. But, just be yourself, enjoy the process. If you have a young team, be patient with them, build those relationships, have expectations and set the bar. But, just to have a good balance, and don't be afraid to challenge kids, but also realize that that there's only so far sometimes that you can push that, and then I would encourage. I've got a taste again this year. Part of the challenge for me has been helping the coach help players embrace their role.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have to be relationship based with this, and it's a process, but having each player kind of take ownership of what their role is on the team and look to thrive within that, instead of everybody trying to be, Top Gun or, everybody kind of have their own little thing going on.
Right.
So yeah, like determining what the kids' strengths and weaknesses are, and have them encourage them to embrace the role in a positive fashion.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent comment. I had a similar conversation with my team this year is drastically different than my team last year.
Right.
And, so the way I coach them is different, and, the expectations are just a little different, but I talked to them at the beginning of the year, and I didn't use the word roles necessarily, but I used the word contributions, which is basically the same. I just told each one of them that you have to find what your contribution is going to be to this team. Not everybody's going to contribute, 20 points or 20 rebounds. What are you going to contribute? Maybe it's just good defense and deflections and communication, or, maybe it's assists or something, but what's your contribution to the team? And sometimes it takes a good coach to help them find that.
Yeah, no, I like the word contribution. That's good.
So, anyways, well, it's been a good episode, Mark. I appreciate you coming on and revisiting the podcast with me. And it's always good to talk to you. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope the family's doing well, and I especially hope you're enjoying coaching Titus there in his last season. Right, he's a senior this year.
Yeah, I mean, he could technically play again, another year next year, but I think he's going to be finishing up. So we'll see how that works out. But
awesome,
he's having a good season. I hope you're having a good season too. You have a young team. Probably you're coming off the championship year. That might not be quite the record, but hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. How do you feel about your chances to they win the championship last year, Titus's team, or did they come in second?
Yeah, they lost by 1 point in the championship. So
is there a chance they'll get that back this year?
I mean, I would like to think that I would make a 2-point difference on the team over the course of the season. But
hey, if that's your contribution, then
yeah, I mean it's going to be tough. The team that they lost to had everybody pretty much come back, and they're tough again. We've lost them twice this season already, but they're beatable. We're right there. So right now we've come up with a game plan that we're trying to just work on for the whole rest of the season, with that game in mind, because we're a strong second over the third and fourth team. So we're able to kind of just work towards that one game. And
so you think the path to them again is pretty clear, you think, and preparation for them is kind of what you're looking at right now. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, great to have you on. Hope you have a great day today, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. I hope your podcast continues to go great. And thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun.
All right. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Real Game. My brother referred to Coach Joe Gibbs today in our conversation, who coached the Washington Redskins. I want to leave you today with one of his quotes. If I keep God first in my life, if I keep my family and friends as second, and then I keep my occupation third, that's when I found success. So good luck, coaches, and coach on.